Please confirm you can see my screen. Please confirm you can see. Okay, good, fantastic, well done. Okay, in the previous class, we looked at the conditionals, and we looked at how we can actually try to integrate and or into our condition, and also by using the if statement, saying that if a particular condition is met, this is what we should do. And we did a very practical example with a lot of persons trying it out by themselves. If they had issues, they asked questions in the previous class. And tonight's class, we're just going to go to another new concept, and which I know some of you have gotten to use it even in the real world example. We have been having this particular condition as well. So what we are going to look at tonight is definitely going to be that of what we call the else. It's called the else statement. It's also a condition in Python that has to tell you that if a particular condition is not met, okay, if it's not met, then definitely this is what I want you to do in this particular thing. So in this tonight's class, we'll look at a practical example of else statement. And if they ask you what do you understand by else, you could actually tell the person that definitely else is an alternative execution. Else is what we call an alternative execution. Why is it called an alternative execution? It's because if the other conditions are actually not met, this is what I want you to do with it. So if else is called an alternative word execution. Okay, most of the time we need to more than one condition to check if for a particular kind of scenario. So this is when the else comes in, and also we also have what we call the elif as we get along. But tonight we'll look at a little bit. We'll look at else, and also by looking at how well we tend to get it, a particular concept of if and else. So if we can get faster with it, we can move further to elif and try to make things work practically ourselves. Please, in this class, I would like you to just be practical enough. You can see that sometimes you could actually run your code, and after some, you actually feel that you know the code, but once you run it, you see that you have an error. It's always nice for you to do a practical example. So I'll go straight to the practical example of else. And for those that did not join us in the last class, please try as much as possible to always follow up with the YouTube video. And for you just joining, for you, they're not there in if condition. So if it's more of like a conditional kind of statement, if a condition is met, it means this is what you should do. So tonight we'll also look at another concept of conditional known as the else. We say that it is called the alternative execution. Okay, so let's go there and let's give a practical example. And tonight we're going to look at if we want to find if a number is an even number. If we want to say this is more of a practical kind of question, ask you to write a code that can actually check if a particular number in which you have is an even number or odd number. For the fact that we know that even number are always divisible by 2. And remember when we started our Python programming, we made mention of different data types, we made mention of different symbols that we can use to express mathematical kind of functions or mathematical kind of expressions. We made mention of the floor division. We made mention of the normal division, that's the forward slash. We made mention of modulus. We made mention of modulus operator. We are going to use the modulus operator here to make sure that we find out what we can actually do to get whether or not a number is even or odd. So we are going to see it practically. So the first one is just for us to, we're going to define our variable, and define it to be y, and define our variable to be y, and can say that this, let's start with a number that we feel could be an even number. So let's use 16. By the time we use 16, I will now say, okay, if we start with first with if, because there will be no else, if there is no if, and there will be no elif if it does not have if. So if is the first condition in which you are going to make, and once you get that condition done, you are going to move into the else condition. So we go to if y, that's the y we have defined, is definitely, once you divide it by 2, it's not going to give you any remainder. Definitely that's an odd number. So we're going to use the modulus operator here, which is always represented by the percentage sign. Is divisible by 2. That means anytime we are dividing y by 2, it's going to give us is equals. Remember that equals is either the comparison operator or the equality check. So if it's what is going to what 0, definitely we are going to put a column. So if y modulos 2 equals 0, that means is dividing 2, it doesn't have any the remainder. It means that definitely that number is what is going to print that it is what is going to what even. So we're going to just use even. We're going to use even. So by the time we do that, okay, you say, okay, if it's this, okay, this is what I want you to do. Now, if it is not even, what should we do? We are now going to say, okay, remember, look at what I'm doing. I'm not putting the else block. What I'm going to type now, I'm not going to put it inside the if block. I'm going to leave the if block and start a new block entirely, which is just, I'm going to backspace and I'm going to use else. Else, that is the alternative execution. So if it is not, and you can see it doesn't come with any condition right now, it comes with like an alternative. If it is not even, then this is what I'm going to do. Okay, so else, you click on enter and you're going to print what? You're going to print, you can decide to print odd. Okay, so by the time you do this and want to run this, definitely if you run this now, it's going to print. Let's see what it's going to print for us. So it's going to print even, because definitely 16 is an even number. 16 is an even number. But if we decide to use 15 here and print again, it's going to print odd. So that is what we are actually we understand by the else statement. So if this condition, the y modulus 2 equals 0, is not, if it's not even, if it's not equals to 0, it means definitely it is what? It is an odd number. That's why it's printing the odd number for this particular even. So we can also decide to say what do you call it? We can decide to say use the impute method instead of just putting this. You can just use the input method and ask the user. Enter. You can ask the user to enter their number. Enter your number. Okay. So enter your number. So by the time they enter their number and they do this. So let's try and run this if it's going to work for us. So enter your number. So by the time they enter this number, let's say they enter 13 and they enter. So what is going to happen? What are we going to do now? See, something is not all arguments were what? Not all arguments converted during string formatting. So what do you think could actually be wrong in this particular code right now? What?
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Hello, are you with me?
Not initialize it to. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What do you think is wrong? Not all the type error is trying to tell you not all arguments converted during string formatting. So what do you think is going to be the issue right now?
Yes, we did not put int in front integer to specify that we want to input integer in the
an integer. So okay. So let's see that. So where should I put it now? This is debugging happening right now, and I appreciate the fact. So where are we putting it?
That was before. Yes.
Open bracket
input.
Okay. Is it before the input or after the input?
No, after the input.
Okay. Okay. I like what you are doing. So, okay. So are we ending any other this thing here? Are we good to go? Should we check it out if it's working for us?
Yes, we should check it out.
Okay.
Oops, Jesus.
So what do you think is going? I should put it before the input, okay?
Yes.
This is practical. Okay. Hints and put it before the what? Okay. So should we run this now and check?
Yes, it will work.
Okay. Invalid syntax on line 3. Okay, what do you think is the problem here? Invalid syntax. What do you think is the issue right now? It's saying syntax error, invalid syntax on line 3. Where is line 3? This is 1, 2, 3. So what do you think is wrong right now? Guys, it's practical. We can bring out your idea.
Please scroll up. Please scroll up.
Okay, I'm up. This is where we started.
You put a bracket in front of int.
A bracket in front of where?
In front of the int. There
in front of the int.
Yes, there shouldn't be a bracket there.
Okay. How? Okay, in front.
No.
Okay, here.
Different.
Okay, here.
No, in front of the int. Yes, move that one. Then there should be a bracket there. Yes.
Okay, like this.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. We are getting it. This is real life debugging. Nice one, nice one. This is how we make it happen. I was just looking at guys, if you are taking part in that debugging, you're actually trying. It's something that we see regularly in your Python. I'm going to the comment section. Can you please increase the fonts for the result? I don't know how we're going to do that, but I'll try. I will find a way to make you see that soon. So that was a real life debugging session. So let's enter a number. Let's see 14. So you can see 14 is now even. So let me see if there's a way we can actually do that and increase the font size. So let's go to settings, editor. Okay, I don't think there is one. I don't think there is one. I'm going to show line number so that we can actually. So I don't think there is one here for now. So we just have to. I'll be telling you the answer, like the output. So right now, we have gotten it to work for us, and it's making a whole lot of sense. So don't mind the number here. I just added the number here, so that we'll be able to see each cell that has a particular number. So you can actually understand what we mean by if and else. So if you decide to run this again, and let's use 13. Let's use 13 and enter. You can see it has showed odd. It's now showing odd number as it's showing odd as to print. That means it did not satisfy the line 3 condition. That's why it's moving to the what? To the else condition to print odd. It means that 13 is definitely an odd number. So I don't know if you understand that concept. Please, if you do not understand, let us know now before we proceed. Please, it's very important. Please, if you do not understand, please let me know so that we can use. Right, please. Okay, I think everybody's on point. Everybody's on point right now. Okay, so I can proceed, right? Good. Hello, can you hear me? It seems at some point I was not connected. Please, where did you? I asked of a question, like if you understand, if you want me to continue, should I proceed? Yes, I should. Please, if you have any questions, please ask. Okay, good. Please, if you have any question, if you don't understand the concept of if and else, please let me know now. Okay, good. So let's continue. Let's try and be fast so that we can actually get into elif. So let's look at a practical example. We have been using numbers. Let's use more of like let's use a string kind of character and say let's use something that is not an integer. Let's something that is not an integer. So let's try something like okay, if a particular type is this is what I want you to do. So let's try something like let's define x to be, let's define x, x should be a string character, and we can decide to use axion, at this particular point. And it seems I should just delete this number. I think it's just disturbing. It feels somehow for some persons that we are still trying to. So let me, so that you not see that one x is part of our code. It's not, please. So x is equals to advion. We're trying to create for a string character. So please, if you want to find out a type in function, maybe you want to see if it's a particular type is this is what I want you to do. So you remember what we used, the type function that we used before. So if type, remember when we used type then, I remember when we started. So this is us bringing it back. If type x is what? Equals integer. If the value of x is equals integer, you can decide to say you are going to print that it is definitely an integer. So you can say integer. Else, if it's not, so else, how do I do my else? I'm backspacing and I'm going to check and create it to be in a new line. Else is going to be what? Else is going to come with a colon, and I'm going to say print. Is going to definitely print. And what is it printing? Can say not integer. I can just say not integer. Okay. So if it's not an integer, if it's this adjoint, definitely is not an integer. So what will happen is that it will definitely print this one out. So let's see how it's going to go. You can see the answer is not integer because the value for the type of x which we have defined here, if type x is equals integer, this is what I want you to print, integer. But else, if it is not, we are going to print what? Not integer. But if you had defined this place to be more of like what if you have defined this place to be, let's say we want it to be 11, and we now say, okay, run this. Okay, so we can decide, see it's showing that it is an integer now because 11 is an integer. If we use 0.0 here, let's use 0.0 here, 0.0, and let's see what it will give us. Definitely it's going to give us not integer because 11.0 is not an integer, it is a float number. So at this point, I don't know if you understand the whole concept of else. Please let me know if you understand the whole concept of else. So you can actually do something and move further. Please, can I proceed? Please, I need to proceed to elif right now. I just want us to take it little by little. Okay, good. All right. I don't know. Maybe I've been here only with Mr. Ko saying something. Can I proceed, Mr. Sunday? Can I proceed, Mr. Tosin? Mr. Funso Adekunle, can I proceed? Mr. Kweyemi, can I proceed? Mr. Emmanuel Amodu, Miss Emedion Namke, can I proceed? Mr. Mark, please, I need to hear from you. Can I proceed? Yes, oh, no.
Yes, you can proceed.
Okay, guys. So let's continue. Good evening, Ma. Okay, yes, you can. Okay. All right, so let me continue with the class. So by the time we get to, we are going to move to another one known as the elif. Elif is more of that. It's great in a real life scenario. We can see that most times that we proceed. Okay, I'm trying to see. Yes, you can. Okay, so when we get to conditions like this, so guys, I hope you can hear me. So sorry about that. I think it's the network over here. I don't know why it's behaving this way. Maybe because I'm connecting using my mobile device. Um, can you hear me? Please confirm you can hear me because I really do not want to waste your time.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. So I mean, it may happen again. I don't know why it's behaving this way tonight, but we'll try to fix it up in the next class. So the next one we're going to look at is the elif. It means in a condition there could either be more than two conditions apart from the if and else. So we have other things like what we call the elif. It's called elif, ELIF. So where does elif comes in? Elif comes in from two words. That is the else and the if. So it takes out the se and bring in the elif. So if else, the se goes out and brings out the if and el, and it becomes what? Elif. So elif will only work if there is if. You cannot just start a condition statement and say elif. It will not work except it has the if itself. So let's make a practical example and let's use a function. We have been using functions so far. So let's define. Want to ask the user to enter a number. Want to ask the user to enter a number. And once the user enters a number, I want it to do what? Ask and check if the input is positive, 0, or negative. Either the input is going to be what? We are going to check the input of the user. Either it's going to be positive, 0, or negative. So let's define a function. We can define a function. Define it is underscore positive. You can just use positive underscore positive. Definitely, we don't want to put any arguments, any parameters for now. So the next thing we want to do is to do what? create a user variable name inside the scope that tries to ask the user's input. So let's use user underscore input underscore input, and we're going to define it equals to input itself, so input, and we can just tell the user to what? Please take note of errors. If you tend to enter errors, please enter your, okay, enter your number. Okay, you can just enter your number. So by the time he enters the number, by the time the user enters the number, we can decide to say, okay, now let's work with that. Now, I want to do something different. It will be something you can have done it from the very first line, but I want to cast the inputs from the user and define another variable to it. I can decide to name it x equals to, or I can say casted x or casted input. Okay, so let me just remember when I just said we should always use a define. So casted input, so we can just say casted input. Say, okay, so we can define it as just say casted input and define it as it converts it to integer, anything that the user gets in. So we put in user and we press tab. So guys, by the time I press that tab, it's going to complete the what? It's going to complete the name. So anything the user input, from the user input, anything he gets, I'm going to do what? Cast it using the integer. So we could have just done it on line 1, this first, second, this particular one, but just do it step by step. And now we get to the conditions now and said if what casted, if casted, let me press tab. Okay, let's suppose the tab sometimes doesn't work then. So if casted input, if the casted input is what? If casted input is greater than 0, that means it is, if something is greater than 0, it means it is definitely a positive kind of number. So if it is greater than 0, we're going to tell it to print, and decide to say it is positive. So I just use positive, and use positive. So now we need it to be 3. We need either it is positive, it is 0, and it is what? Negative. So now this is when the elif comes in. Remember our backspace and say elif, if it's elif, if that means if, else if, or if else, or anyhow you want to put it, but elif equals if what is what we are going to use, which is casted underscore input is what? Is equals 0. What are we going to do? You can just decide to say print, what? Definitely put it in a string because it's a string and can say 0. Okay. So by the time we print 0, the next thing we're going to look at is else, and we backspace again and started on the same line. Else, you can see else does not come with a condition. Is the other one, is the one that doesn't come with anything for us to write in front of it. You just know that anything is just like a catch-all kind of something. If it's there in if it's there in elif, okay, the rest of you, okay, oh yeah, now you both are already in the other zone. So I don't know what you're going to, when you're building apps, you'll be taking note of this kind of thing. So else, this is what I want you to do. So else, if something is not positive, if something is not 0, that means definitely going to be going to print a negative. So we can just say print, we can decide to print negative, okay? And just use negative here, and let's see how it goes. So you see something like this, and by the time we do this, definitely we can decide to run this now. It's working for us because it's a function. We have not called it out. So let's call it out in the next code. I will now say is positive. So is underscore positive, and decide to call the function name out. So remember this is how we run it. So it's positive. And by the time we call it out, and let's see, if we run this one now, let's run it now. You can see it's asking for enter your number. So let's add a number like, let's say 34. And I say, okay, now you can see the print option is saying positive. Okay, now if you decide to run this again, let's run it again. It's asking for a number, let's say 0. You can see what it's telling. It's giving you, returning it as 0. Now let's run it again. Let's use a negative number, negative 24. And it's returning as negative. It's returning as negative. So it is very, very important that we see the whole concept of what elif on its own. You can see the whole concept of elif right now. So what I want us to do right now is more of like a classwork. It's more like a classwork. We can decide to just, or maybe you can take it home and submit it later on. So what I want you to do is to define a function wherever you are. Define a function. By the time you define this function, ask for a number between 1 to 7. Ask the users the number between 1 to 7, which this number 1 to 7 will decide the day of the week via the number. So anytime you ask the user the days, the number in which it wants to impute, by the time the user imputes that particular number from 1 to 7, you are going to use that particular number in which the user gets and define conditions to it. And I say, if this is this, if number is equals this is what I want you to do. Print this. If it's this, print this. If it's this, print this. So that is what I want you to do in this particular class work. Even though you don't finish it tonight, but I would like you to try it out and submit it as fast as you can. So the question is, define a function, ask the user to put in a number between 1 to 7. By the time the user puts the number between 1 to 7, then it will now decide, that number will now decide if it is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So one will, I think the first day of the week is Sunday. So you can use 1 to be Sunday, 2 to be Monday, and the rest. So that's what I want you to brainstorm right now and come up with something. You can share it in the chat room, or you can share it over here. Okay, definitely share it in the chat room so that it will be like a reference kind of thing for a purpose in case I want to document your work on social media. Please, let's try it out. If you don't understand the whole concept, let me know right now. Please try it out. Are you guys trying, or can you hear me? Do you understand the question? Mr. Sunday, do you understand the question? Mr. Medion?
Yes, we can hear you. We understand.
Okay, good. Nice one. Please just try it out right now. Yeah, just try it out. It's hands-on. Just try it out. Try it out. Just try it out. Define a function. Ask for the number for a number between. Ask the user for a number between 1 to 7. By the time the user gives in 1 to 7, any of the number, if it is this, define it. If it is 1, make it to be Sunday. If it is 2, make it to be Monday. If it is 3, make it. So you'll be using a lot of elif, elif until the last one, which could be, you could use it as Saturday, which is the 7th day, or anyhow you want to put it. People have different ways of, if you're a Muslim, you have different ways of calculating the days of the week, or I don't know, but just try. If you're a Christian, if you're a traditionalist, if you're an atheist. The question is, define a function. Once you define that function, ask the user to input a number between 1 to 7. By the time the user inputs any input from the user that comes in to be 1 to 7, define if the user said if user, you can define a variable name. If user input equals 1, print this day. If it is 2, print this day. Looking at the days of the week, how you calculate your own days of the week. Let's see how you are going to make it happen for you. Do you understand it now, Mr. Oko? Hello, do you understand me? Can you hear me wherever you are?
Yes, I understand.